Welcome to Charts Today, Europe Open. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 31st of October, comes to you from London. Dollar strength being the theme at the moment. We're seeing here dollar now taking out that August high. That's very bullish indeed, and we're seeing just marching up the hill here. Long-term bullish transition. So really quite strong, and we activated this upside target yesterday to 16% higher. So it does look like the dollar strength is going to be a key theme throughout the coming months. Euro looking weak against that strong dollar. Japanese yen actually looking weak against the dollar as well. The dollar rising here quite strongly. Sterling actually sitting fairly flat at the moment against the dollar, but has fallen consistently over the last week and testing that August low as well. And against the euro, we're seeing sterling still bearish short term, medium, and long. The Swiss franc seeing sterling weak here as well, and against the Aussie dollar also weaker. Bitcoin was fairly flat over the last 24 hours after the big falls we saw on Monday, but interestingly, we are just seeing this bearish behavior and downside targets of 5 and 7% here, so it's still looking like a weak story. US markets recovered somewhat yesterday. The S&P 500 was up 0.5%, 1.5%. The Nasdaq up by a similar amount. These charts still look pretty bearish. It needs more than just a 1%, 1.5% rise to change things. The Dow was up also 1.7% as well. The Russell index was also up, but again, still looks pretty bearish. The futures this morning are looking stronger, so it does look like this recovery will start to continue for today at least. We're seeing the S&P future up 0.4%, and then the Nasdaq E-mini up 0.75%. Interestingly, that S&P future bullish really for the first time on that short-term chart, having recovered through there. The FTSE future is up just under 1%, so it looks like UK market will open higher, and the DAX index is up 1.2%, so it looks like Germany will open higher. Looking at those cash indices, the FTSE does look still pretty bearish, although there is a chance that we might make a short-term transition to the upside. We'd activate this new upside target of 6.8% higher at around 70.80, let's say 7,100. So we've still got quite a bit of work to do for the market to turn bullish. The 250 also starting to make that same similar transition, but again looking pretty bearish on the medium and long term charts, as is the DAX, and the DAX has more work to do to turn bullish yet. The CAC 40 also is still bearish short term, so we have a mountain to climb really for European markets to start looking bullish again. Japan was up around 2%, Hong Kong 1% up, although the chart's still very bearish here. China up 1.35%, but again still bearish on all three time frames. And the Indian market was not as strongly up, but again still looking weak all round. The Aussie market up 0.4%. We're seeing a little bit of recovery in crude this morning, despite that strong dollar. Brent crude up 1.2% and WTI up 1%. So we are just seeing some improvement there, and US nat gas actually up quite sharply, up 3.24%, up just under 2% there, so $3.24. Looking at gold, gold's sinking lower on that stronger dollar as we might expect, unwinding quite a few of these short-term targets. So the big one still remains in train, but we've activated a new downside target to 1177. So just not managing to make that medium-term transition yet. That strong dollar not helping. Similarly with silver, and we're seeing US 10-year yields looking a little bit stronger as we just transition into bullish short-term. And again, just that dollar strength having an impact there, and we're seeing European bond prices just starting to falter. The German bond just starting to look a little bit lower. Looking at equity markets, we see it's a sea of green in Asia. We haven't seen that for a while. Every market in Asia up really. Again, the Nikkei up over 2%. And many markets up over 1%. So even Taiwan we're seeing here up 2.9%, despite have obviously had big falls on trade fears. So quite interesting to see that. Looking at the Nasdaq last night, we had quite a lot of good performance. Of course, the stocks sort of rebounding. Alphabet up 1.4%. Still looks very bearish on the charts. If we look at Apple, Apple was up only 0.5%, but it hasn't been heavily sold, so there was less for Apple to gain there. So we see that there. Amazon continued to fall and has had a really big rout this month. So Amazon is actually really having rolled over and starting to look very bearish on the relative chart. This is relative to the Dow. This data all coming from Yahoo Finance. We've seen here that we've rolled from over 64% outperformance now to 28% outperformance. So we've fallen in relative terms some 30%. So it's quite a big fall. Looking at some of the other stocks, Facebook out with results last night. They were up in after hours trading, but the chart still looks pretty bearish, so it'll be interesting to see how Facebook trades today. Taking a look at some of the others, if we look at Microsoft actually were down in an up market, so not so good there, but the relative not really showing any signs of cracking, just flat at the moment. Netflix up 0.34%, and if we look at Tesla have been a strong spot of late, but they were down 1.5%, just giving up some of the gains that we saw in the last week or so. Taking a quick look at the Aussie market, we had AMP recovering 7%, having had a really bad week last week, but actually the chart doesn't change anything on the chart, still looks pretty bearish. We had corporate travel management plummeted down 27%, so we are seeing some quite big moves here still. TPG Telecom down 6%. If we take a look at the Indian market, Tech Mahindra were up 7%, so you're seeing a little bit of improvement there. India Bulls, one that's been falling a lot lately, up 3%. Infosys up 3%. So just recovering here. What was looking like the end of a trend, it might still be okay, but the relative not looking great. Chinese market, a lot of stocks up. Chinese Northern Rare Earth up 9.6%. Galaxy Entertainment in Hong Kong up 3%, Sunny Optical up 5%, and the Nikkei again a lot of gainers. Adverts up 12%. Looking to Europe now, we see. If we look at the FTSE yesterday, we saw big performances from Ocado, which have been heavily sold off lately, and CRH also performed very strongly yesterday. Looking to the downside, we still had lots of stocks falling quite heavily. Rickett and Benckiser are down 4%, so we did see quite a fall off there. IG Group up strongly yesterday, and the 250 up 5%. But boy, they've dived in the recent weeks on the financial side, and again they've gone from 20% outperformance on the Dow Jones to 20% underperformance. So a real gyration there. And then last of all, we just look at the European market stocks. We see that we had some still quite big performances there on the upside, and if we look to the downside, we did have Jyske Bank in Denmark down quite sharply, and Lufthansa were also down very heavily yesterday, down 8%. That's taking them into bearish territory as well. It's a weak recovery that we're seeing at the moment, but some respite. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.